Hello, welcome back. In this section, we're going to talk about data models and the process around the operations of your digital service. It's one of our longer, more detailed lectures, so I want to ask for your extra attention on this one. The end goal is for the service owner to understand some of the more important parts of the services they own. This understanding will empower them to effect change towards improvements on their service throughout its entire life cycle. We started this course with a statement about what service owners do. They provide services that facilitate desired outcomes for consumers. Let's now take a look at what this means at a high level. Organizations must have capabilities to function. Capabilities like the one shown here: field a complaint from a customer, manage money coming in and going out through finance, or taking care of the employees. Today, the process of providing these capabilities usually starts with the purchase of an application. Applications such as ServiceNow, PeopleSoft, SAP, and Workday, to mention a few. Once these applications are purchased, they have to be set up and configured to operate in the organization. This is where the first layer of digital services come in. The application service teams provide the infrastructure along with all of the other enabling technology needed to bring the application that was purchased to life. In bringing it to life, it now becomes accessible to administrators, but it's still not useful to the end users that need the capability described by the organization in our first block. Take a minute to think about that. The application team provides value to a consumer, but the consumer isn't the end user. The service offerings are another layer of the service owners and managers. These are the service owners that work with the lines of business in order to deliver the value that they need. This service offering layer is the one that describes the value to the consumers, and it also facilitates the delivery of that value. A capability listing is great to have, but don't be surprised if you don't find this. If you don't know where to find it, it doesn't hurt to ask, so that you can tie your service back to the core needs of the organization. This will empower you to express your service in the words of the leaders that originally expressed the need for it. The idea behind capabilities is to create a top-down listing of what's needed to run the organization, like this list of financial capabilities that we see here. Ideally, they'll identify the part of the organization that's requesting or originally requested that capability. Sometimes there's an elaboration on the capabilities, and nesting is created. For example, this one's a level 2 capability. That means that there's 2 capabilities up above it. Evaluate and manage financial performance has a parent shown in the list, and that parent has another parent at level 0. By drilling into a record, you should be able to gain more information about what the creators had in mind. Don't worry about the relationship for now. We'll get to them later. There you have a high-level description of capabilities. If they do exist in your organization, that's excellent. If they don't, maybe give some thought to what the thinking is at this high level. Somewhere there is a list in your organization, or more than likely multiple lists, of applications that your organization is paying for. Something like this one. These are assets, so there's typically going to be a lot more information available on these records than there would be on the capabilities records that we talked about earlier. Starting from the right, you can see the stakeholders. Some of those you'll probably want to become pretty good friends with over time. You can also see the vendors, the contract terms, compliance and use information, and sometimes even costs are listed with these applications. Drilling into a business application, you'll find a wealth of information that can help you to make key decisions. In the beginning, it might just be useful to find out what your service uses. There could be some surprises in there. From there, you can look for alternatives, maybe even have a discussion with architects or other people in the know. If you're fortunate enough to have a list of all of your applications used throughout the organizations, things can get very interesting. Maybe you'll find someone in another department that doesn't know about your service and has purchased an application to perform that service for their department. Lastly, I want to go back and remake a point that I made in an earlier lecture. And that is, don't buy another application unless you really need it. Too many people start a service with, I need to buy this application so that I can provide that service. I worked with a city not too long ago that had 10 different services to normalize citizen addresses. Think about that. Through all the different departments in the city, 10 different applications. Not only was this inefficient and costly, but it defeated the entire purpose. When you have 10 normalization solutions that aren't synced, nothing's normalized by default. I'll let you stew on that one a bit. If you do want to buy another application, it might be good to start your justification with the existing ones that don't meet your needs. Organizations that have centralized procurement often perform this step as part of their diligence during the procurement process. For those of you that are new service owners, we're starting to get into the meat of it here. Your organization is spending a lot of money on applications, and it's your job to squeeze every last ounce of value out of those applications. Up to this point, the organization has expressed its need, and they've purchased applications, as we go down this list, that help you to address those needs. How much value at this point has the organization realized from doing that? The answer is zero. There's zero value right now. The next layer is application services. Application services are like walking into your brand new house. You have the structure there, but it's still not usable. There's no appliances in your house, there's no furniture, and there's no food in the fridge. What it does, though, is it moves the organization towards value realization. Not only do you have the software, the business application asset we just talked about, but now you can access it. Just like with capabilities and applications, you have these lists somewhere. Something like this in ServiceNow. These application services are the heart of the service model that we'll talk about next. There are people that own and manage, support, approve access to these application services. A status is communicated. In this case, all the application services are communicating as operational. They're also labeled according to criticality to the organization. Before we move on to this slide, I want to make a point. Application services are services, but I want to ask you why. Why do you think they're services? The reason why these are services, unlike business applications or capabilities, is because some service owner has taken the initiative to facilitate outcomes for consumers. They have the licensed software installed, or they've created an account if it's software as a service, or maybe they just act as a central point for support. They may have a staging, dev, and test environment if they need to. Whatever it is, there is someone that's responsible for making sure the organization can use the application. And all of that definition is in application services. Since this is a running application, you'll see some new things in this record. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk more about relationships. For now, I just want to make a quick note of what's downstream to an application service. And that's its infrastructure. Anything that it takes to run the application should be listed as a downstream dependency to the application service. This includes networks, servers, application processes, and even backup power equipment. Service owners that own these types of services, these application services, they're usually more technical. The next layer is where the service actually gets to the end users. The offerings represent the value being delivered to the organization. This could be delivered to a customer, an employee, or even a department as a whole. This is what comes from the applications running and being configured in a way that allows the business to realize the value that they had intended to realize. The value add at this layer is more than just running the application like we did with application services. For example, there are many departments that I know that require an asset management capability. Just running software that does asset management isn't enough. Usually the departments that set up the asset management service offering configure it to meet the needs of each specific department. They adjust it for unique business processes or to ensure the people have the right level of access. While it's important to realize what the teams do at this level, it's also important to realize what they don't do. One is they don't worry about infrastructure and business applications. The application services teams take care of that for them. It's not uncommon for one team to have responsibilities for both the application service and the service offerings that we're talking about now. There may be one service owner that owns both of those services, the technical side and the service offering. If there is one owner, usually the roles, the people that work under that owner or that work with that owner, that run the technical side, the application services piece, they're usually different than the people that work with the lines of business to configure the business process. Let's take a look at a service offering record. While there's a lot that's the same, you'll notice a few things on this record that are different from the application service record we looked at earlier. First, there's a mention of a price and a catalog. That's because you often charge the business back for these types of services. And it usually lists all of these offerings in a catalog for people to see and subscribe to. Just like you go to Amazon to buy a service, you can also go to your own internal team and buy a service from their service catalog. Next, you'll notice that it talks about subscribers and customer satisfaction surveys. Service owners, again here, they're like entrepreneurs. Advertising, measuring satisfaction, maintaining subscribers is all part of the job. Remember, people aren't always forced to use your service. They can stand up their own service in some cases. They can use a vendor to do what your service does. And they do that in a lot of cases. Many times management won't force everyone's hand to use the service that's there. Many times it's up to you, the service owner, to earn the trust of those subscribers and sell them on the value that you can bring as an internal provider. I know there's a lot to absorb on this one, so let's recap before we conclude. Organizations must have capabilities to function. Applications are purchased to address those capabilities that are needed. Application service teams provide the infrastructure along with all the enabling technology to bring the application to life, actually have it running. And finally, service offerings are what is provided back to the lines of business. It's where the value is delivered. It's where we actually deliver on the promise of the capabilities that we had asked for all the way at the beginning of the chain. Service offerings are what completes the loop. Let's recap with an example of a service we probably all know, email. The organization at some point had expressed a need for email, and that is the capability. Next, somebody paid either Microsoft or maybe Google to use email, and that's the business application arrangement. Once it was acquired, somebody had to set it up. Somebody had to configure the email so that it was usable for that organization. They provided a network, some single sign-on, maybe even installed some software on some servers. And that's the application service, is all that enabling technology with that business app on top of it. And finally, the departments request people to be added or removed all the time. And this is part of the business or organizational service offering that's provided back. I can now add accounts, I could add users and take away users. For those of you seeing this for the first time, it's a bit of a leap into the deep end on the technical side. Don't worry if you feel a little lost. The next few lectures will bring you back in. We're going to go over these concepts a few times. We're going to provide you with some more solid examples like this email one that we just talked about. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.